Hi everyone, it's Karen and I'm here at the Cool Tools studio to share with you guys how I used our new Cyprus Copper Clay alongside one template to make two very different cuff bracelets. So using this one template, I made two very different cuffs, and I had made this one first by using the template as a guide to cut out areas in the clay, and then I laminated the one sheet of clay on top of another, and I'll show you all about that in the video. I loved the way it looked, but it was kind of a lot of work. And then I realized I could just use this template to emboss the same pattern. And it's a lot more subtle, but I really like the way this looks as well. So let's dive in and I'll show you how to use this template. For this project, you're going to need a work surface, some clay thickness rolling frames, a clay hydrator, and then I've got some Cyprus Copper Clay. You're going to want some gloves in a bottle, some cool slip, and then an array of sanding materials. You're going to want a clay roller, and then I've got the garden rose cuff template and a clay perforating needle. And then I've got a rawhide mallet, a cuff bracelet mandrel, and I have some clay rolling folders. We're going to begin with this version of the cuff bracelet, and this one was made by using 2 layers of clay, one that was pierced with the floral design that was laid on top of a flat sheet. For the top layer, you're going to use 2 cards thick rolling frame, and the back layer is going to be 3 cards thick. So we're going to start with the top layer, and the overall finished project ends up weighing about 25 grams of clay, so I'm going to begin with half of that. And I should probably use some cool slip so it doesn't stick. Get my roller too. And then since this cuff bracelet, I'm going to end up cutting to this size, won't fit this way very well. I'm going to kind of be awkward and roll on a diagonal. That way I get enough room. It's my nugget of Cyprus Copper Clay. And I love this clay. It's super flexible. It's got this really nice kind of silkiness to it. It cuts so cleanly, and you're really going to love working with it. And I really like that copper's at a much lower price point than silver, so you're able to work big without kind of breaking your budget. Now that I've got my sheet of copper clay, I like to cut the edge of the bracelet first. That way I can line it up with the etched outlines here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the border of my bracelet. And then you've just got a couple little joints here that you're going to have to kind of eyeball and connect. And if you mess it up a little bit, you can always sand things. This clay is very forgiving. And let's just get the excess out of the way there. Alright, so now we're ready to cut out the pattern, and I've got a clay perforating needle here, but I usually like to move it over to a kind of beat up clay surface because this needle will scratch up the surface and you don't want to cut up the surface that you're rolling on. So I'm going to try to pick this guy up. I'm going to lay him down on this to cut. Look how flexible this clay is. So I'm going to lie the etched outline down with the cut outline on the clay. And then I'm just going to gently follow all of these lines with the needle. And this doesn't have to be a big pressure thing. This clay cuts really, really cleanly. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of these out. And once I've got them all cut out, we'll catch back up. I have all these areas pierced out, and now I'm going to very gently, because there are some thin spots, peel up my template from the clay. And then I'm just going to use my clay needle to kind of pick up and pull out all these areas that I've pierced out. When I'm done with this, I'll catch back up with you. So I've got this top layer here with all the areas pierced out, and I'm going to roll out the back. Start with my cool slip again. And the back is going to be 3 cards thick because you want it to have a little more stability. Now that I've got this to 3 cards thickness, we're going to cut it to the same size as the first piece. Again, I'm going to remove the little extra clay there from the guide and get rid of my excess. So now that I've got the back ready, I'm going to apply the front to the back. And to do that, I'm just going to spritz the back layer with some distilled water. Very gently peel up my pierced piece. And try to, best you can, line it up. You can file off any excess or if you don't line things up perfectly. It takes some scooting and adjusting. And then I'm just going to very gently kind of tap it down. And then I'm going to give it one more spritz over top. I'm going to let this dry a little bit until the surface doesn't look as damp as it does right now. You can kind of see the drop still. And then we're going to move it over to a bracelet mandrel to dry. So the surface dampness is kind of gone. My clay is still very much so wet clay, like you don't want to allow this to dry and then try to bend it because it will crack on you. But we're going to pre-bend this to a cuff shape before we fire it because this cuff is a little too large to fire in the firing bins with the carbon with the inch you need on the sides. So we're going to pre-bend it around our bracelet mandrel. And so it doesn't stick to the mandrel, I'm going to be using clay rolling folders. So that'll kind of help me keep my bracelet from sticking to the mandrel. And I'm going to pick up my bracelet and kind of try to gently lay it over top. I'm trying to center it. Once it's fired, you can use a rawhide mallet to reform in shape if things aren't perfect. You just want to get it in a general cylinder form at this point. So now I'm going to take another rolling folder that I kind of cut in half and wrap it around the outside. That way it won't fall off as it dries and break on you. And it'll take a little bit for this to dry, especially with the plastic on either side. If you want to kind of hang around and watch it, and use a kind of drying or a heating tool, you can try to speed things up, but I just leave this overnight and then fire it the next morning. So we're gonna leave this to dry and then we'll catch up. So I have here a dried cuff. You'll wanna check the inside and make sure that it looks dry too. And once you have it off the mandrel, if it's kind of shape stable but not still dry, you can allow it to air dry open without putting it back onto the mandrel. But once it does dry, it's in this shape pretty well. It has a little bit of flexibility, but it holds its form amazingly. So now we're gonna sand and clean up our edges. You can kind of see where things have laminated, and my goal is just kind of even up these two sides. If you want to round that front face, you can. If you like it kind of flat and square, that's a design choice that you can make. But I'm just gonna be sanding these two faces until they line up nicely. I'm starting with the medium since I've got quite a bit to remove, and then I'm gonna move on to the fine for some more shaping. So I've been doing some shaping here with my sanding stick, and you can see that there's no longer two separate lines there from the pieces. It's just one solid piece. And I've kind of come across this edge to round it because I decided I like that better than the squared off cuff look. And now that things are shaped and our edges are lined up, I'm going to move on to using the sanding sponges to clean up the surface. Where's my fine? Here's my fine. I like that these are soft. It's good for helping to even out that rounded edge that you did. And I'm going to work my way through the sanding sponges. So I've sanded and finished the surface on the sides and the top. Since this clay cuts so cleanly, I really didn't have to do much. I just kind of came in and gently sanded the surface. You'll want to brush off the copper dust from the sanding, and then you'll be ready to fire this. This Cyprus Copper Clay fires with a 2-phase firing schedule. For the first phase, you're going to set your piece on top of a wire rack supported by kiln posts in your kiln. You're going to full ramp up to 650 and hold for 30 minutes. Your second phase of firing will take place in carbon. You can use either activated coconut carbon or coal carbon. You're going to start with 1 inch of carbon in your pan and then set your bracelet in the center. Then you'll want to top it off with the carbon, and you want to make sure that you have 1 inch or so on top as well. You fire this without a lid. You're going to full ramp up to 1600 and hold for 3 hours. While the first cuff is firing, I'm going to show you the other technique using this template, where you use it to emboss. I've got here some Cyprus Copper Clay rolled to 4 cards thickness. And then I'm going to be laying my template on top, but since it's going to kind of be impressing into the clay, I'm actually going to use a little bit of cool slip on it as well. It's a little generous. Don't need too much. Try to wipe some away. So then, I'm going to switch out to the 3 card stick rolling frame, and that'll kind of control the depth of your embossing. If you wanted to start from 5 and move down to 3, you'll get a thicker embossing. You can do that. But you're going to use the rolling frame to support your template and control the depth of your emboss. So I'm going to lay it down on there, and then I'm just going to roll across. So then again, we're going to gently pull this up. And then there's your embossed texture. So then I'm going to gently set this on top to cut the outline. And you don't want to, again, the rolling frame will kind of help keep you from squishing your pattern you just embossed. But since it does distort some when it rolls, you are going to cut your bracelet form after you've embossed. So I'm just trying to line it up and eyeball it. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Once this cuff is completely dried and you've sanded and refined the edges, you're going to fire it exactly as you did the first. So this piece is fired, and I've just really quickly kind of brushed off the carbon and cleaned it up with a Scotch-Brite, but I'm going to show you guys how to form your bracelet a little bit more after it's been fired. And some of them will kind of warp all the way closed. Some of them might kind of twist to be uneven. Don't worry about it. This clay is super malleable after it's been fired, and you'll be able to fix the shape. So I've got a bracelet mandrel. I'm just going to slide my cuff on there. Like I said, this guy held its form pretty well, but it's not all the way up against it. So we're just going to give it a mallet to refine the shape some. And then also you can, if it got too small, you can kind of slide it down and expand the size of your cuff. If it got big, you can bring it up and pinch it on there to tighten it again. Like I said, it's super malleable. So once you're happy with the shape of your cuff, you can tumble it to kind of harden it and solidify the shape and the size. So I have here my finished cuffs. I chose to tumble them, and then since I kind of like a darker look on my copper, I darkened them with the patina gel, and then I raised the higher areas with the Scotch-Brite. In case you guys haven't figured it out yet, I really love enameling. And if you would like, you can use this technique as a platform to do a champlevé enamel, and there'll be a part 2 video coming out where I'll show you how to do that. I've had a lot of fun making these cuffs using our new Cyprus Copper Clay, and I hope you'll give it a try. It's super flexible, it's got a really nice silky texture to it, and it cuts so cleanly. It's a really forgiving clay, and I've had a lot of fun, and it's a great opportunity to work a little bigger than you normally do. Thanks for watching.
Visit our Learning Center at cooltools.us for more cool jewelry making videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to sign up for our email list to be the first to hear about new videos, new products, and other cool stuff from Cool Tools.